What's going on? It's Billy here from the best place to buy gold online, and welcome to part 2. And in part 1, obviously, we discussed the definition of fiat currency and the difference between fiat currency and money. And in this part, we're going to discuss the devastating effects it can have on a society when the government prints too much fiat currency and that confidence is lost. So I just want to cast you back to the 1920s. And into Germany and the Weimar Republic. World War One had just finished, and at the beginning of World War One, Germany went off of the gold standard, and it suspended the right of its citizens to redeem their currency, the mark, for gold and silver. And like all wars, World War One was a war of and by the printing presses. The number of marks in circulation in Germany quadrupled during the war. Prices, however, had not kept up with the current inflation of the currency supply, so its effects were yet to be felt by the nation. And the reason for this particular phenomenon was because in times of uncertainty, people tend to save every single penny. That's kind of what you're seeing today. People are saving, they're not spending, and the inflation has not caught up with the prices, or the prices, should I say, has not caught up with the current inflation out there. World War One obviously was a definite uncertainty. So even though the German government was pumping tons and tons of currency into the system, no one was spending it yet. But by war's end, confidence flooded back along with the currency that had been on the sidelines, and obviously then the ravaging effects just took over, and prices just rose to catch up with the previous monetary inflation. And so just before the end of the war, the exchange rate between gold and the mark was 100 marks per ounce, but by 1920 it was fluctuating between 1,000 and 2,000 marks per ounce. Retail prices followed shortly, and they rose by about 10 to 20 times, and anyone who still had their savings they had accumulated by the war was bewildered when they found it could only buy 10% less than what it did a year or two earlier. And then all through obviously the 1920s and first half of 1921, inflation slowed, and on the surface the future was beginning to look a lot brighter. The economy was recovering, business industrial production was up, but now there was obviously war reparations to pay. In the summer of 1921, prices started to rise again, and by July 1922, prices had risen another 700%. And this was a breaking point, and what broke was people's confidence. They lost their confidence in their government, the economy, and the currency, and having watched the purchasing power of their savings fall by 90%, they knew better this time around because they experienced it a year or so earlier. So all at once, the entire country's attitude towards currency changed. People knew that if they held on to the currency for any period of time, they'd just get burnt and they'd just get wiped out. So they were just spending it like it was going out of fashion. The rising prices would wipe out their purchasing power because it was just incredible. You couldn't keep up with the inflation. The government was just printing money like it was going out of fashion. So they were just spending it as quickly as possible to get the things that they needed, because they knew that the next day or in an hour's time, prices would be going up again and their currency would be worth less. It would take more of that to buy whatever. Suddenly, everybody started obviously to spend the money. It became like a hot potato. They just didn't want it. They just want to get rid of it as quick as possible. And obviously, the final breaking point for Germany then was they'd obviously used up all their natural resources, their coal, their oil, their gold, to pay the reparations. And by this time, they had nothing left. So when it came around to the second payment, France and Belgium obviously thought that they would pull in a fast one, so they invaded. And they took over the heartland and the factories and the production point of Germany, and how it was actually making money. And so the government came up with an ingenious scheme by paying all 2 million workers not to work and just be passively protesting against the occupation by France and Belgium. So there was that was the final breaking point. It sent it into a hyperinflation, and there's a report from the New York Times that on February 9th, 1923, Germany had 33 printing plants that were belching out 45 billion marks every single day. By November of that year, there was 500 quadrillion a day. And yes, that is actually a real number. So there you have it, that's Germany. And you're probably thinking, well, that was ages ago, that was 1920s. So I'll just give you another example of what happened in Zimbabwe in 2008. So I'll just cast you back to 2007. 2007, one Zimbabwean dollar, and it's probably worth about 5 pence today, was actually equated to $1 US. So British pound, it was probably worth about £1.50. So quite a good exchange rate. It's about average. It's currently what's about average if you want to trade your euros for pound, or your pound for Swiss francs, or your pound for a US dollar, whatever. You're getting quite a decent exchange rate, right? So obviously, you've seen it all before. You've got a 1, we've got 5s, you've got 10s, 20s, 100s, 500s. That was 2007. Cast you back to just a year later, 2008, they started printing millions of the stuff. There's 200 million Zimbabwean dollars. There's 5 billion Zimbabwean dollars. 50 million, 50 million, and $10 trillion. Now, I did have a $100 trillion note, but the postman stole it. He obviously thought it was worth some money, more for him. It's probably worth about 50 pence in today's value in British money. So just to show you that the more they printed this stuff, the less and less it becomes worth anything. And at this point, confidence are completely broken in that country. They had rampant inflation, which opened up, obviously, price controls from the government, which put businesses out of business because they couldn't afford to sell it at the prices that we're currently at, which opens up a black market. You have a barter system, and the only protection you have against that is gold and silver, because in times like that, gold and silver always withhold their value, their true value. And an ounce of silver or an ounce of gold doesn't change. It's still an ounce of gold, or it's still an ounce of silver. But what's changing is how much this stuff can actually purchase. How much purchasing power this stuff here gives you. So I hope you've got a great understanding of what fiat currency is, the devastating effects it can have on a society. If you did, feel free to like, comment and share. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and check out my website, goldfinancial.de. Go ahead and register yourself for a free account. And I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.